What's up, everybody? My name is Pete Conan. Thanks for stopping by and checking out this video today. We have an important topic as we explore how digital and social media has influenced the way we do youth ministry today. And if we're just meeting, I'm a youth pastor in Central California. I created this channel for students who are exploring the Christian faith, for parents of those students, and for other people that are working in your youth ministry and serving in youth ministry to help us all do the best job we can. So let's check this out. Today is important. This moment in history is important because we're in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, and a lot of churches and youth ministries have had to adjust and pivot the way they connect to the people that they serve during this time. And certainly we don't want to be cavalier about this. There's real things going on, and our hearts go out to the people that are in the midst of this thing and fighting. And as we look at what is happening, I think another wise thing to do is look at how this is going to shape the way we do youth ministry and reach people for the future. Because if we're all honest, social distancing is not a new thing. Our society has become increasingly more socially distant and individuated over the years. And whether or not social media plays a role in creating that or not, I'm not sure. But it just is. It's just something that's going on. And I think the crisis that we're experiencing right now maybe has accelerated that social distancing, but it didn't create it. And so we really have to kind of look back a little bit so that we can look forward a little bit and make the adjustment. And maybe physical distancing is a better distinction to make because we're all being really social. We're just kind of using different means for creating social connection. And so as we think through this topic, there's a few things to keep in mind. Now, this video is kind of philosophical. There are more practical things that we can talk about in another video, but there's a lot that goes into this. And so way more than can fit into one big, behemoth video. So we'll try to break it down for you a little bit. This is going to be a little bit more philosophical. We're going to lay the groundwork here to really understand how social media, digital media are influencing the way we do youth ministry. And right there, we need to make a distinction. Digital media and social media, and the way I think of it, and maybe there's a better definition out there, but social media is digital media, but social media is interactive. So if you watch this video and it just stays on the shelf, that's digital media. It's just something to consume. But the moment you share it, it's become social media. The moment you comment, the moment you participate in it in some way, it has now become social media. And for older people, it's definitely harder to see how students today make meaningful connections through social media. But it is happening. Digital natives or Generation Z, however you want to create a category, young people who have grown up with the existence of social media feel they can make meaningful connections through that platform. And they can. And it may be foreign to some of us that didn't grow up with social media. Now, I'm on the fence here. I'm a little bit of a millennial, a little bit of a Gen Xer, and I don't know what I am, but there are digital natives and there are digital aliens. And so for older people who did not grow up in the digital world, it's harder to see that meaningful connection is possible through social media. So we need to kind of just give it that much. That whether you make meaningful connections on social media or not doesn't mean that meaningful connections aren't possible. Now, the other thing, while we're talking about it, the other distinction to make is that social media is morally neutral. It's not good or bad in and of itself. People are good, people are bad, and people will use social media for good things and bad things. And so as we move forward, I think we can begin to look at some of the good things that we have to gain through social media, but also be aware of the negative things and be wise and discerning about how we interact and move forward. What are the goals of ministry? When you think through the goals of ministry and then you think through social media, do they intersect in some ways? One of the first goals of ministry is to create connection. We want people to connect with the God who is there. We want people to connect with other people in their faith community. So we're connecting people to God, we're connecting people to each other. And is it possible that social and digital media can help us do that? Now, you'll probably guess which way I lean on this subject, but it's always hard to gauge whether or not connections are taking place, whether we're doing it through digital media or we're in the same room. Somebody could be having a genuine connection with the God who is there. They might be genuinely in worship, but how do I know? They look like they're genuinely worshiping God. They look like they're praying authentically. They look like reading the Bible is meaningful to them. But how do I really know? I don't. And so it is hard always to gauge whether or not we are making those connections in ministry. It's just difficult to gauge whether or not what we're doing is kind of succeeding in making those connections, and that's okay. Digital and social media, I don't think, make it any harder to gauge whether or not those connections are meaningful or whether or not those connections are genuine. But there is a possibility that we are making connection, and so I think we utilize it. We utilize any means necessary to make connections with people in our faith community or outside of our faith community. We use the necessary means to connect people to God, whether that be a spiritual discipline or whether it be a song that you play on the radio. So let's think back to Gutenberg and the printing press, right? I mean, nobody would say today, oh, we can't let our kids have books because some people might be writing bad things. We're not sure what our children might be exposed to if they open up this new thing called a book and begin reading it, right? Well, yeah, certainly people could write bad things in books, but people can write good things in books. And the church utilized the printing press. I mean, some people would say that the Protestant Reformation would have never taken place if Martin Luther didn't utilize those means that were available to him to spread the message that was going on at that time. And so the Christian church has had a history of using whatever means are there to spread the news about this person, Jesus. Today we have digital media, today we have social media to spread that very same news. We have to use it properly, but that doesn't mean we don't use it. There's certainly a lot of bad out there on the internet. But maybe it's our goal to try to introduce some good into that platform, right? Maybe it's our goal to try to introduce some good into the social media space. The other goal of ministry is kind of a mentorship and spiritual formation goal. I want to teach. I want young people to experience what I've experienced without necessarily having to go through all the failure that I went through to experience it, right? So I sort of take people along my journey with me and say, well, here's what I've learned. And I think we certainly can do that through digital media and social media. That's one of the goals of this channel, is I just want to download my brain and my experience to you guys so that you can have access to it. And because I don't always make connections with my students every week, but if they know that this channel exists, they know that they can go here anytime and hear something good, then that's great, right? Maybe students miss a youth group, but since we're posting our lessons online, whether it be YouTube or some other platform, then they can have access to that lesson. They can still be a part of what God is doing in that youth ministry or in that faith community in some way. So they don't miss out on the mentorship, they don't miss out on the spiritual formation. Again, it would be like picking up a book and reading a book on prayer. Well, that would be similar to watching a video on prayer, I think. And one of my favorite authors is Francis Schaeffer. I never met the guy, right? I mean, Francis Schaeffer died around the time I was born, but because I've read many of his books, and I've read several of his books multiple times, I mean, I feel like I know Schaeffer. And Schaefer is one of the people that impacted my spiritual formation a lot when I was exploring Christianity, but I never met him. And so, is it similar? I'd love to hear your feedback on that. I mean, that's kind of how I think of it. I think of recording this and putting this video together as almost like writing a small book for people. It's a digital video book, maybe, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I mean, that's just kind of how Pete Conan thinks about it, but how do you guys think about this? Is it similar to just picking up a book and reading it and interacting with that person? I mean, I can even hear Schaefer's voice in some ways, right? Or C.S. Lewis or one of your favorite authors. You recognize that author's voice because you've read their books. That mentorship and that spiritual formation process, I think can be helped and assisted by a platform like this. Now, since we've talked about books and as we kind of wrap up at least this chapter, I have some books for you because books are awesome. Books are amazing. This book, it's pretty good. This is going to be a little bit more on the philosophical side about how the hidden power of electronic culture and how that certainly influences our culture today. The next book is, and of course I don't have it because a lot of my books are digital now, Navigating Our Digital World, some of the Fuller guys. I love the work that they're doing, so I'm always recommending them. The other one, and I don't have it, it's at my office and I'm working from home naturally, is Todd Bolsinger's book, Canoeing the Mountains. It's not a youth ministry book, but I think it's really important. And I did a review of a bunch of resources. I included Bolsinger's book in that review. And so there's probably other books out there. If you guys have one that you recommend, give it a shout out. And thanks for stopping by. You can check out some of the other videos that I've put together related to the work that I'm doing in youth ministry. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and hit the notifications bell and really be a part of the community. At least I see it as community, and I appreciate you guys being a part of that community. So thanks for sticking around. I will catch you in the next one.